The autumn breeze rustled through the maple trees at Riverside Park, carrying the sound of children's laughter across the playground. It was one of those perfect Saturday mornings, not too hot, not too cold, just right for spending time outdoors. Among the families enjoying the weather were a mother and daughter who had recently become each other's whole world. Sophia, a pediatric nurse at the local children's hospital, watched with joy as her 6-year-old daughter Ashley swung higher and higher on the swings. "Look how high I can go, Mom," Ashley called out, her blonde curls bouncing with each swing. Sophia's heart swelled with pride. These simple moments meant everything to her. 3 months had passed since the adoption was finalized, and every day brought new discoveries. Like how Ashley always wanted her sandwich cut into hearts, not triangles, or how she'd scrunch up her nose when concentrating on her coloring books. Little things that made their bond grow stronger each day. As Ashley pumped her legs to swing higher, Sophia noticed an older woman on a nearby bench. The woman had been watching them for the past 15 minutes, her face a mix of confusion and suspicion. Sophia was used to the looks by now. A black mother with a white child often drew attention, but she refused to let it dim their joy. "Mommy, can you push me?" Ashley called out, and Sophia gladly obliged. She moved behind the swing, giving gentle pushes while Ashley giggled with delight. Higher, higher. The sound of her daughter's laughter was music to her ears. Their morning had started like any other Saturday. They had their special weekend breakfast, chocolate chip pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse, though they usually ended up looking more like abstract art. Ashley had proudly picked out her own outfit, purple leggings with a sparkly unicorn t-shirt that didn't quite match, but Sophia loved how her daughter expressed herself. Other families were scattered around the playground, some at the sandbox, others by the slide. 2 moms chatted near the monkey bars while their kids played tag. And Dad was teaching his toddler how to climb the small rock wall. It was the kind of peaceful scene that made their neighborhood feel like home. Sophie remembered the day she first met Ashley at the adoption agency. The little girl had been quietly reading a book about butterflies, and when Sophia sat down beside her, Ashley immediately started sharing facts about monarch migration. Their connection was instant and natural, as if they were always meant to find each other. Now, as they enjoyed their morning at the park, Sophia couldn't imagine life any other way. She had already learned so many lessons about motherhood, like how to handle nightmares with just the right balance of hugs and gentle words, or how to negotiate with a 6-year-old about eating vegetables. The secret was making them into funny shapes. "Mom, watch this," Ashley called out as she jumped off the swing at its highest point. Sophia's heart jumped too, but Ashley landed perfectly on her feet, throwing her arms up like an Olympic gymnast. "Tada. Amazing landing, sweetie," Sophia applauded, while keeping one eye on the older woman who was now typing something on her phone. Years of experience had taught her to be aware of her surroundings, but she wouldn't let anyone's prejudices interfere with their happiness. The playground was getting busier as more families arrived. Some faces were familiar from Ashley's school. They'd often see classmates and their parents here on weekends. Ashley had already spotted her friend from art class by the slides and was bouncing with excitement. "Can I go play with Lucy?" she asked, pointing toward the slides. The hopeful look in her eyes was irresistible. "Of course, honey. Stay where I can see you," Sophia replied, giving her daughter a quick kiss on the forehead. As Ashley ran off to join her friend, Sophia found a spot on a nearby bench. She loved watching her daughter play, how she included everyone, shared easily, and always had a kind word for other kids. The morning sun felt warm on her face as she observed the playground dynamics. In her work as a pediatric nurse, she'd learned that you could tell a lot about children by watching how they play. Ashley had always been a natural leader, organizing games and making sure everyone felt included. The older woman was still there, now speaking quietly into her phone while glancing in their direction. Sophia took a deep breath, hoping this beautiful morning wouldn't be disrupted by someone else's narrow-mindedness. She'd faced similar situations before, but something about this woman's persistent staring made her uneasy. Still, Sophia kept her focus on Ashley, who was now leading a group of kids in what appeared to be an elaborate game of make-believe. Her daughter's imagination never ceased to amaze her. One minute she was a veterinarian caring for injured unicorns, the next she was an astronaut discovering new planets. Time seemed to slow down as Sophia savored these precious moments. The sound of children playing, the warmth of the sun, the peace of a Saturday morning, it was perfect. Or at least it was perfect until she noticed the older woman standing up, smoothing her clothes, and walking purposefully in their direction. Sophia straightened her back, took another deep breath, and prepared herself for whatever was coming. She'd learned long ago that the best defense against prejudice was staying calm and composed. As a mother, she had to set an example for Ashley about handling difficult situations with grace. The peaceful morning at the playground shifted when the older woman began making her way towards Sophia and Ashley. She walked with the confidence of someone who believed they were on a mission, her designer handbag swinging with each determined step. Her perfectly styled gray hair and expensive athleisure wear screamed neighborhood watch captain, the self-appointed kind. "Excuse me," the woman called out, her voice carrying that fake sweetness that usually preceded trouble. "Little girl, could you come here for a minute?" She directed her words at Ashley, completely ignoring Sophia's presence. Ashley, who had been in the middle of her make-believe game, looked uncertainly between the stranger and her mother. Sophia felt a familiar knot forming in her stomach, the one that came from years of dealing with people who thought they had the right to question her family. "I'm sorry," Sophia said, keeping her voice steady and professional, "but we don't talk to strangers. If you have any questions, you can address them to me." She moved closer to Ashley, who instinctively reached for her hand. The woman, who would later introduce herself as Barbara Wilson, pursed her lips as if she tasted something sour. "I'm just concerned about the child's welfare," she said loudly, drawing attention from nearby parents. "It's my duty as a responsible citizen to make sure everything is appropriate." Several heads turned their way. A couple pushing their toddler on the swing stopped to watch. Sophia felt her chest tighten, but years of working in high-pressure situations as a nurse had taught her how to stay calm when everything inside screamed to do otherwise. "I appreciate your concern," Sophia replied, her voice clear and controlled, "but I am Ashley's mother. We're just here enjoying our Saturday morning like everyone else." She squeezed Ashley's hand gently, feeling her daughter press closer to her side. Barbara's eyes narrowed. Her mother, really? The skepticism in her voice could have cut glass. "I've been watching you too, and I find that very hard to believe. Do you have any proof?" A few parents had started moving closer, some with phones partially raised. Ashley tugged at Sophia's sleeve. "Mommy, why is that lady being mean?" she whispered, loud enough for Barbara to hear. "Because some people don't understand that families can look different from each other, sweetie," Sophia explained gently, while maintaining eye contact with Barbara. "But that's their problem, not ours." But Barbara was already deep into her phone conversation, describing Sophia as a suspicious individual while pacing back and forth. Her voice grew louder as she provided detailed descriptions, making sure everyone could hear her concerns. Sophia pulled out her own phone, quickly pulling up her digital folder of adoption documents, something she wished she didn't have to carry but experience had taught her to be prepared. The sound of approaching sirens in the distance made her heart sink. Ashley pressed her face into Sophia's side. "Are we in trouble, Mommy?" "No, sweetie, we're not in trouble," Sophia assured her, running a hand over her daughter's hair. "Sometimes people need help understanding things. The police will come, and we'll explain everything, and it will be okay." Barbara stood triumphantly nearby, still on her phone. "Yes, I'm keeping them in sight," she was saying. "No, they haven't left the playground. I'm making sure of that." The morning had turned into something ugly, but Sophia was determined to turn it into a teaching moment for Ashley. They sat together on a bench, Sophia explaining in simple terms about prejudice and assumptions, about standing up for what's right, and about how some people needed time to learn and grow. More parents had gathered around them now, forming a protective circle. Someone offered Ashley a juice box. Another parent pulled up photos on their phone from the recent school carnival, showing Sophia and Ashley together. The community was rallying around. 2 police cars pulled into the park's parking lot, their lights flashing but sirens now silent. The morning sun glinted off their windshields as they came to a stop. Officer Michael Chen stepped out of the first car, followed by his partner, Officer Lisa Thompson. From the second car emerged Officer David Rivera, a 15-year veteran of the force. The playground had become unnaturally quiet. Parents held their children close, phones recorded discreetly, and Barbara stood with her arms crossed, a look of satisfaction on her face. Sophia kept Ashley close, whispering gentle reassurances while trying to control her own racing heart. "Everything's going to be okay, sweetie," Sophia murmured, though her throat felt tight. "These officers are just going to talk to us for a minute, and then we can go get that ice cream we talked about." Officer Chen approached first, his steps measured and careful. He had kind eyes and moved with a deliberate calmness that came from years of experience. His partner hung back slightly, keeping an eye on the growing crowd of onlookers. "Good morning," Officer Chen said, his voice friendly but professional. "I'm Officer Chen. We received a call about a concern at the playground. Would you mind telling me what's going on here?" Before Sophia could respond, Barbara rushed forward. "I called," she announced loudly. "I've been watching them, and something's not right. That woman claims to be the child's mother, but just look at them. We need to make sure everything's legitimate." Officer Chen held up a hand, silencing Barbara's outburst. "Ma'am, please step back. I need to speak with everyone individually." He turned back to Sophia and Ashley, his expression softening as he noticed Ashley's frightened face. "Hi there," he said, kneeling down to Ashley's eye level. "I'm Mike. That's a really cool unicorn on your shirt. Do you like unicorns?" Ashley nodded slowly, still pressing close to Sophia. "They're my favorite," she whispered. "Mommy got me this shirt for my first day of first grade." Officer Thompson had moved closer, her notebook ready but her approach gentle. "Can you tell me your name, sweetheart?" "Ashley," she replied, her voice gaining a little confidence. "Ashley Marie Thompson. I'm 6.5. She emphasized the half with the seriousness only a child could muster. "Thompson." Officer Rivera had joined them, his experienced eyes taking in the situation. "Any relation to Dr. Thompson from Central Hospital?" "He was my grandfather," Ashley said proudly. "Mommy has his picture in our living room. He helped lots of sick people." Sophia pulled up her phone, her hands steady despite her nerves. "I have all our adoption documentation here, officers, including the final court orders from 3 months ago. Ashley has been my daughter legally and in my heart since then, though we bonded long before the paperwork was final." Officer Chen reviewed the documents carefully while Officer Thompson spoke quietly with Ashley about school and her favorite subjects. The girl was warming up now, explaining enthusiastically about her art project hanging in the school hallway. "You're a pediatric nurse at Children's Hospital, correct?" Officer Rivera asked Sophia, his tone professional but kind. "Yes, going on 8 years now," Sophia replied. "That's actually where I first met Ashley. She was visiting her cousin in the cancer ward, reading books to the younger patients. She has such a beautiful heart." Barbara, who had been hovering nearby, stepped forward again. "But how can you be sure? I mean, look at them. It's our duty to question these things. I was just trying to protect." "Ma'am?" Officer Rivera interrupted firmly. "Making false reports and harassing families is not protecting anyone. These documents are completely in order, and several witnesses have confirmed they know this family." The crowd of parents had grown, and many were nodding in agreement. Lucy's mom stepped forward, her phone displaying photos from the recent school bake sale. "Sophia and Ashley are always at school events. They make the best cookies, and Ashley helps serve them to everyone." Officer Chen stood up, having completed his review. "Everything is in order here," he announced clearly, making sure Barbara could hear. "Ms. Wilson, we need to have a conversation about making false reports and racial profiling." Ashley tugged at Officer Thompson's sleeve. "Are you going to take the mean lady away? She made my mommy sad." Officer Thompson smiled gently. "We're going to talk to her about making better choices. Sometimes people need to learn that families come in all different ways, and that's what makes them special." Sophia felt tears pricking at her eyes as more parents came forward with stories and photos. There was the time Ashley had helped organize a fundraiser for the school library. The day Sophia had stayed late at the fall festival to help clean up. The countless moments that showed they were simply a normal family, living their life. "I am so sorry you had to experience this," Officer Chen said quietly to Sophia. "No family should have to prove their love or legitimacy to strangers." Barbara was now speaking with Officer Rivera, her earlier confidence deflating as he explained the serious consequences of making false police reports and engaging in discriminatory behavior. Her face had lost its righteous anger, replaced by something that looked like embarrassment. "Mommy," Ashley said, pulling at Sophia's hand, "can we still get ice cream? You promised, remember?" Sophia laughed, wiping away a tear. "Of course we can, baby. I think we both deserve a double scoop today." The other parents were already dispersing, many stopping to offer kind words or quick hugs. Officer Thompson handed Sophia her card. "If you need anything, please don't hesitate to call. We take harassment very seriously." As they gathered their belongings to leave, Ashley turned to Officer Chen. "Thank you for being nice," she said solemnly. "When I grow up, I want to help people too, just like my mommy." The officers watched as Sophia and Ashley walked hand in hand toward the park exit, their shoulders lighter, their bonds stronger. Behind them, Barbara sat on a bench, looking small and uncertain as Officer Rivera continued explaining the consequences of her actions. The morning sun was high now, promising a beautiful day ahead. Ashley skipped beside her mother, already chattering about whether she wanted chocolate or strawberry ice cream, the earlier tension melting away like frost in the sunshine. Love, as it turned out, needed no explanation or proof. It was simply there, as clear as the autumn sky above them. The truth has a way of coming out, especially in small communities where everyone's lives intertwine in unexpected ways. As Officer Chen finished reviewing the documentation on his tablet, more parents from Ashley's school began stepping forward, each with their own story to share. Mrs. Henderson, Ashley's art teacher, pushed through the crowd, still wearing her paint-stained apron from the morning's community art class. "I can't believe what I'm seeing," she said, shaking her head. "Sophia and Ashley are one of our most dedicated families. They just finished painting the school's new welcome mural last weekend." The officer looked up with interest as Mrs. Henderson pulled out her phone, showing pictures of Sophia and Ashley covered in paint, both laughing as they worked on the colorful mural. In one photo, Ashley sat on her mother's shoulders to reach the higher parts of the wall, her small face scrunched in concentration. "They stayed 3 hours after everyone else left," Mrs. Henderson continued, "just to make sure the rainbow was perfect. Ashley said it needed to be bright enough to make everyone smile when they walked in." Barbara, who had been standing off to the side with Officer Rivera, seemed to shrink a little with each new person who came forward. Her earlier righteous anger was fading, replaced by an uncomfortable realization that she might have made a terrible mistake. Mr. Chen from the local bakery arrived, still wearing his flour-dusted apron. He'd left his shop unattended when he heard what was happening at the park. "These two come to my shop every Sunday morning," he said, his voice carrying across the playground. "Ashley always helps arrange the display cookies, and Sophia brings coffee to our elderly customers. They're part of what makes our neighborhood special." Ashley, who had been quiet, suddenly perked up. "Mr. Chen, are you making the special rainbow cookies today?" Her innocent question made several people laugh, breaking the tension that had built up. "Of course, little one," he smiled. "I saved some just for you." More neighbors arrived, drawn by text messages and phone calls about what was happening. The Petals from the apartment next door brought up how Sophia had helped their grandmother during last month's power outage, checking on her every few hours and bringing hot soup. Mrs. Lopez, who ran the community center's reading program, spoke about how Ashley and Sophia volunteered every Tuesday afternoon, helping younger children with their reading. "Ashley has such patience with the little ones," she said, "just like her mother." Officer Thompson was taking notes, but they weren't about suspicion anymore. They were about community, about connection, about how one family had touched so many lives in their neighborhood. A group of kids from Ashley's class had gathered nearby, and one little boy couldn't contain himself any longer. "Ashley's mom makes the best Halloween costumes," he burst out. "Last year she helped make all our superhero outfits for the school parade." Sophia smiled at the memory. They'd spent weeks working on those costumes, their living room turned into a makeshift superhero factory with fabric and glitter everywhere. Ashley had insisted that every costume needed a cape that could really fly. Barbara tried to slip away quietly, but Officer Rivera gently stopped her. "Ma'am, I think you need to hear all of this. Sometimes our biggest mistakes can become our greatest lessons." The truth continued to unfold like a flower in the morning sun. The school principal arrived, having heard about the incident. She brought with her a folder of photographs from school events, Sofia chaperoned field trips, helping with science fairs, attending parent-teacher conferences. "What strikes me most," the principal said, addressing everyone gathered around, "is not just how involved Sofia is, but how she's always the first to volunteer when other families need help." Last month, when the Thomas family was going through a rough time, Sofia organized a meal train. She didn't just coordinate, she cooked something every single day for 2 weeks. Ashley, now feeling more confident with all the familiar faces around, tugged at Officer Chen's sleeve. "Want to see something cool?" She pulled a slightly crumpled paper from her pocket. A Mother's Day card she'd made at school. The front showed 2 stick figures holding hands under a giant heart, one tall with dark curly hair, one small with blonde pigtails. Inside, in wobbly first-grade handwriting, it read, "To the best mommy in the whole wide world. Thank you for choosing me to be your daughter. I choose you to be my mommy too. Love, Ashley." Officer Chen looked at Barbara, who was now dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "I think," he said gently, "this is what real family looks like. It's not about matching appearances, it's about matching hearts." The crowd had grown so large that it spilled out of the playground and into the park proper. Someone had brought coffee and donuts from the cafe across the street. Children played while adults shared stories. What had started as an ugly incident was transforming into something like an impromptu community celebration. A photographer from the local newspaper had arrived, drawn by the gathering crowd. She captured the moment when Ashley, perched once again on Sofia's shoulders, waved to everyone. The photo would later appear in the paper under the headline, "Love Makes a Family. Community Stands Together Against Prejudice." As the morning wore on, the truth had become undeniable. This wasn't just about proving that Sofia was Ashley's legal mother, it was about showing how one family had woven themselves into the fabric of their community, thread by precious thread, through small acts of kindness, through showing up, through love that asked for nothing in return. The video started spreading almost immediately. Someone had captured the entire incident on their phone, from Barbara's initial confrontation to the community's overwhelming show of support. By Sunday evening, it had already reached over 1 million views across various social media platforms. The comment sections filled with messages of support, stories from other adoptive families, and discussions about prejudice in everyday life. "This could have been my family," wrote one mother from Seattle. "I'm so glad the community stood up for what's right." Local news stations picked up the story. The morning shows wanted interviews, but Sofia was focused on keeping Ashley's life as normal as possible. They still had their Sunday routine, pancakes for breakfast, then off to Mr. Chen's bakery for fresh cookies, followed by reading time at the local library. "Mommy," Ashley asked while they sat in their favorite corner of the children's section, "why are people taking so many pictures of us at the bakery?" She was curled up with her favorite book about space exploration, something that had become her latest obsession. Sofia closed her own book and thought carefully about how to explain. "Remember how that lady at the park didn't understand that families can look different from each other? Well, now lots of people are learning from what happened. They're learning that love is what makes a family special, not how we look." The local community center decided to organize a special event called Family Love Day. People from all over the neighborhood came together to celebrate diverse families. Kids made artwork showing their own families. Some had 2 moms, some had single dads, some were raised by grandparents, some were adopted like Ashley. The walls of the community center filled with colorful drawings. Ashley's picture showed her and Sofia surrounded by all the people who had supported them at the park. She'd drawn Officer Chen with an extra big smile and Mr. Chen with cookies floating around his head like a halo. Barbara's workplace, a local real estate agency, had seen the viral video. They issued a statement about their commitment to fair housing and non-discrimination, announcing that they would require all employees to undergo sensitivity training. Barbara was placed on temporary leave pending completion of the training. But something unexpected happened. Instead of hiding away in shame, Barbara did something that surprised everyone. She reached out to a local organization that supported adoptive families and asked to volunteer. She wanted to learn, to understand, to do better. The playground where it all happened became a symbol of community strength. Parents organized regular family playgate days, where families of all kinds could come together. Kids didn't see differences, they just saw new friends to play with on the swings. Ashley School took the opportunity to introduce a new unit about different types of families. The kids shared stories about what made their family special. One boy talked about being raised by his grandmother. A girl spoke about having two dads. Ashley proudly told everyone about how she and her mom chose each other. The local paper ran a feature story titled, "When Love Breaks Barriers." They interviewed families from around the community, sharing stories of adoption, blended families, and the true meaning of family bonds. Ashley and Sophia's story was just one of many, but it had sparked an important conversation. Social media continued to buzz with the story. People shared their own experiences, both good and bad. A group of adoptive parents started an online support network, offering advice and encouragement to others facing similar situations. One evening, as Sophia helped Ashley with her homework, her phone buzzed with another interview request. This time it was from a national morning show. Ashley looked up from her math problems, her face serious. "Do you think we should go on TV, Mummy?" she asked, twirling her pencil. "Maybe we could help other families like us." Sophia smiled, remembering how far they'd come from that tense morning at the park. "What do you think, sweetheart? Should we share our story?" Ashley thought for a moment, her face scrunched in concentration. Yes, she finally decided. But only if I can wear my unicorn shirt. And maybe we can bring some of Mr. Chen's cookies to share. The story had taken on a life of its own, but at its heart, it remained simple: a mother and daughter who loved each other, a community that stood up for what was right, and the power of understanding to change hearts and minds. Local artists painted a new mural in the park. It showed a diverse group of families enjoying a sunny day, with the words "Love makes a family" in bright, rainbow letters. Ashley insisted on helping paint some of the butterflies, carefully adding glitter to their wings. As weeks passed, the viral moment began to fade from social media, but its impact remained. The community had changed. People smiled more at families that looked different from their own. Parents organized diversity book readings at the library. The local police department implemented new training programs. But perhaps the biggest change was invisible to most. It was in the way Ashley walked a little taller, proud of her family and her community. It was in the way other kids at school started standing up when they saw someone being treated unfairly. It was in the quiet moments, like when Ashley caught Sophia crying happy tears while watching the community come together at Family Love Day. "Don't cry, Mummy," she had said, wiping Sophia's cheeks with her small hands. "Remember what you told me. Sometimes the best families are the ones we choose." And look, we chose all these people to be our family too. 2 weeks after the incident, Barbara sat nervously in the community center's meeting room. The diversity and bias training program had opened her eyes in ways she never expected. Today was different, though. Today, she would face Sophia and Ashley in a mediated session, something she had requested herself. The room was warm and welcoming, with comfortable chairs arranged in a small circle. Ms. Rivera, a respected community mediator, had helped set up the meeting. There were cookies on the table, Mr. Chen's special rainbow ones that Ashley loved so much. "Remember," Ms. Rivera said gently, "this is about understanding and growth. There's no judgment here, just an opportunity to learn from each other." When Sophia and Ashley arrived, Barbara felt her heart racing. Ashley wore her favorite unicorn shirt again and carried a folder decorated with stickers. Sophia's face was composed, but her eyes showed a mix of caution and hope. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," Barbara began, her voice shakier than she'd expected. I've been doing a lot of thinking." Ashley, who had been eyeing the cookies, looked up at Barbara with honest curiosity. "Why did you think my mommy wasn't my real mommy?" she asked suddenly. The directness of a child's question can often cut through adult complications like a knife through butter. Barbara felt tears welling up in her eyes. "I made a big mistake," she admitted, looking at both Ashley and Sophia. "I thought I knew what a family should look like, but I was wrong. So wrong." She pulled out a photo from her purse, an old, slightly faded picture of a young girl with different colored skin than her parents. "This is my best friend from college, Katie. She was adopted too. I haven't talked to her in years, but when all this happened, I called her. She helped me understand how much hurt I've caused." Sophia listened quietly as Barbara continued. She shared what she'd learned in her training, about implicit bias, about the different ways families can look, about the harm that assumptions can cause. Her voice cracked several times as she spoke. The hardest part, Barbara admitted, was realizing how many times I might have hurt people without even knowing it. How many families I might have made feel uncomfortable with just a look or a whispered comment. Ashley, who had been munching on a cookie, spoke up again. My teacher says when we make a mistake, we should try to fix it and learn from it. Aren't you learning? Barbara smiled through her tears. Yes, sweetheart, I'm learning every day. In fact, I've started volunteering at the Adoption Support Center. I want to help other families to make up for my mistakes. Sophia reached for a tissue and handed it to Barbara. That's a good start, she said softly. Change isn't easy, but it's worth it. The conversation flowed more easily after that. Ashley showed Barbara her folder. It was full of drawings she'd made of different families in their community. There were all kinds of families, big ones, small ones, ones with 2 moms, ones with just a dad, ones with grandparents raising kids. See? Ashley explained, pointing to each drawing. They're all different, but they're all special. My art teacher says love doesn't have to match to be real. Barbara looked at each drawing carefully, asking Ashley about the families she'd drawn. The little girl's enthusiasm was infectious, and soon they were all engaged in conversation about the community's upcoming Family Love Day celebration. I'm helping organize it now, Barbara shared. The Adoption Center thought it would be a good way to raise awareness. We're going to have food trucks, games, and a photo booth. Every family gets to tell their story if they want to. Sophia watched as Ashley explained to Barbara about the special handshake she and her mom had created, a complicated series of high fives, fist bumps, and silly faces that ended with an Eskimo kiss. Without prompting, Ashley offered to teach it to Barbara. As they practiced the handshake, all three laughing at the missed connections and confused sequences, Ms. Rivera sat back and smiled. This was why she loved her job, watching walls come down, seeing understanding grow. You know, Barbara said thoughtfully, after they'd finally mastered the handshake, I used to think I was protecting the community by being suspicious. Now, I realize the community needs protection from people like who I used to be, people who judge without understanding. Ashley had moved on to drawing a new picture, this time including Barbara in the community portrait. She gave her a superhero cape because, she explained, everyone who learns to be better is kind of like a superhero. The meeting ran longer than planned, but no one seemed to mind. They talked about Barbara's experiences at the adoption center, about Ashley's school projects, about Sophia's work at the hospital. Real connections formed, replacing the prejudices that had caused so much hurt. As they prepared to leave, Ashley tugged at Barbara's sleeve. Will you come to my school play next week? I'm going to be an astronaut discovering new planets. Mom made my costume, and it has real blinking lights. Barbara looked at Sophia, unsure. Sophia nodded with a small smile. Everyone who supports Ashley is welcome, she said. That's what community means. In the parking lot afterward, Barbara sat in her car for a long moment. She looked at the family handshake instructions Ashley had drawn for her, complete with little stick figures and arrows showing which way to move. Something had shifted inside her, a fundamental change in how she saw the world and her place in it. She pulled out her phone and opened her social media accounts. Where she had once posted suspicious questions about people who looked different, she now shared resources about diversity and inclusion. Her first new post was simple. Today I learned that family isn't about matching outsides. It's about matching hearts. 6 months had passed since that fateful day at the playground. The community park was now transformed for the first annual Family Love Day celebration. Colorful banners hung between trees, food trucks lined the parking lot, and families of all kinds gathered on the fresh summer grass. Sophia stood by the welcome table, arranging name tags with Ashley, who insisted on adding a small heart sticker to each one. The morning sun caught the silver threads in the new Love Makes a Family banner that stretched across the park entrance. Mom, look who's here. Ashley called out excitedly, pointing toward the parking lot. Barbara was walking toward them, pushing a cart loaded with boxes of Mr. Chen's famous rainbow cookies. She'd become a regular at the bakery, helping out on weekends and learning all about the family recipes that made the shop special. I brought extra sprinkles, Barbara announced, setting down the cart. "And some of those chocolate stars Ashley loves." She looked different now, more relaxed, her smile genuine. The past 6 months of working with the Adoption Support Center had changed her in ways nobody expected. The park filled quickly as more families arrived. The Peterson twins, adopted from different countries, ran past with their dads, heading straight for the face-painting station. Mrs. Lee and her daughter, who had recently moved in with her grandmother, set up their Korean food stand, the smell of bulgogi making everyone's mouths water. "Remember to save room for the potluck," Sophia called out as Ashley begged for an early cookie. The community had organized a massive international food festival as part of the celebration, with every family bringing a dish that represented their heritage or special memory. Officer Chen arrived in his civilian clothes, his wife and their foster children in tow. He'd become a regular speaker at police diversity training sessions, using the park incident as a teaching moment about community policing and understanding. "The obstacle course is all set up," he reported, pointing to the playground where kids were already lining up. They'd transformed the regular playground into a family team challenge course, where families had to work together to complete fun tasks. Ashley tugged at Barbara's sleeve. "Will you be on our team? Mom says we need 3 people, and you already know our special handshake." The handshake had become their thing, a symbol of how far they'd come from that first confrontation. Barbara's eyes welled up, but she quickly wiped them away. "Of course, sweetie, but you'll have to help me remember the spinning part." The community center had set up a story-sharing tent where families could record their journeys. Throughout the day, people stepped in to share their experiences, stories of adoption, of blending cultures, of overcoming prejudice, of finding acceptance. Sophia's story had been one of the first recorded. "Love doesn't come with a rulebook," she'd said. "It doesn't care about matching skin colors or shared DNA. It just grows where it's planted and blooms when it's nurtured." Near the playground, the local arts council had installed a new mosaic wall. Everyone in the community had contributed a piece, a photo, a drawing, a meaningful object, creating a massive collage of family life. Ashley's contribution was front and center. A photo of her, Sophia, and Barbara at her school play, all wearing matching space-themed t-shirts to support her astronaut performance. "Did you ever think that day would lead to all this?" Ms. Rivera asked, joining them at the welcome table. She'd become a close friend, helping organize monthly community dialogue sessions that had sparked real change in the neighborhood. Barbara shook her head, watching as Ashley taught some younger kids the family handshake. "I was so wrong, but being wrong taught me how to be right. Now I get to help other families feel supported instead of judged." The afternoon brought more activities, a talent show where Ashley performed her space exploration dance, complete with the light-up costume Sophia had made. Barbara cheered the loudest, waving the glow stick Ashley had given her to match the space theme. Mr. Chen's cookie decorating station had turned into an impromptu lesson about different cultural celebrations as families shared stories about their holiday traditions while frosting cookies together. The kids didn't care about the differences. They were too busy competing to see who could fit the most sprinkles on one cookie. As the sun began to set, everyone gathered on the great lawn for a community photo. Families arranged themselves naturally, no one caring who stood next to whom. Ashley insisted on sitting between Sophia and Barbara, teaching everyone nearby their special handshake while they waited for the photographer. "Okay, everyone," the photographer called out. "On the count of 3, say family." The response was thunderous, filled with laughter and joy. As camera flashes went off, Ashley looked up at her mom. "Can't we do this every year?" "I think," Sophia smiled, squeezing her daughter's hand, "this is just the beginning." Later, as they packed up the leftover cookies and folded the banners, Barbara helped Ashley collect heart stickers that had fallen from the name tags. "You know what?" she said softly. "I learned more about love from you two than I did in all my years of thinking I knew everything." The stars were just beginning to appear as the last families headed home. The park was quiet now, but it held new memories of laughter, of understanding, of community. Tomorrow, life would go back to normal, but it would be a new normal, one where differences were celebrated and love knew no boundaries. Ashley fell asleep on the car ride home, clutching her favorite cookie. Sophia caught Barbara's eye in the rearview mirror. She'd insisted on helping them pack up, and they shared a smile. Sometimes the biggest changes come from the smallest moments, and sometimes family is found in the most unexpected places.